Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and Dota tryhards everywhere, it is a fine Wednesday here, and the last Wednesday you're going to see us for a little bit because we're both out of town for 2 weeks, starting next week. Whoa. I'm day 9, and that's Coach Purge. How's it going, Kevin?
Pretty good. I'm excited to do the episode today. Excited to have a couple weeks off too. There's only so much Sean that I can handle in a week, and
I know that's a substantial volume of Sean that you've ingested. You need to give time for your liver to process that, or you'll kill yourself.
And my sister's getting married, so it's kind of like a two birds, one stone thing. So.
Well, that's great. That's fantastic. Yeah. Dude, congratulations to your sister who's getting married.
I will definitely tell her that you said that.
Yeah, and say it just like that. Kind of like the Princess Bride style. Marriage.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that for sure.
Well, that's tight.
Do you want to talk about drafting and matchups and stuff? And 1v1s?
Before we do, I just want to say, I finally feel like in the last week, I feel like I finally, more or less, get the gist of what's happening in my Dota games.
Okay. What?
I finally feel like I understand what each person's trying to do and what the various concerns are,
Do you mean
feels
like
nice.
You understand what they should be doing, or you're reading into their actions now?
It's like I have a very strong basic sense of what the heck is supposed to be happening at the various points in the game.
Okay.
Because what used to happen to me is whether I did something correct or not, what would be occurring in my brain was, I don't fucking know what to do. I guess I'll farm. I don't know if I'm pushing lanes. Like, the pushing lanes episode was especially helpful. That whole concept where you push lanes and you go, well, then he should kind of show up here, right? And then he does. And you're like, oh. And just in the last 2-3 weeks, the idea of pushing a lane and then pulling back, because I used to just push the lane until I died.
Yeah.
Or I would say I would push the lane randomly, where sometimes I would die, sometimes I would destroy a tower, so who knows.
I know that feeling. In Dota 1, one of my earliest memories was playing Visage, and back then his hero was different. The way you'd like summon familiars, you could summon up to 7, and I would go in a lane, and I would push it without going back to base to heal ever until I took their tier 2 tower. Wouldn't buy more items. I'd buy like Treads, Ultimate Orbs, and I'd build a Scotty. And that was one of my earliest memories. So I can definitely relate to the death pushing a lane until you die thing.
It's great. I mean, it's very clear, but I know it's wrong. And the thing that's really nice is I've been doing a lot more role switching up in the last little bit. Like I played Sven last night. It was like so satisfying. And it was weird to play Sven and be like, they're making space for me. I should be farming. How far can I push this lane? Where's safe? And I was like, holy fuck, I know roughly what I'm supposed to be doing. And a ton of nuance is lost on me. I got absolutely shat on by a Magnus because I know how Magnus works, but I didn't know the degree to which his burst spell did damage, which is a lot. So I died several times, but it's feeling nice. And I'm very excited about today's lesson, which is not exactly specifically drafting, but more about thinking about matchups, right?
It's like a half and half thing. The lesson title is matchups and drafting, and we've talked about laning aspects. Again, the part of the problem with the way that we present information to you guys is that we kind of cover topics, and those topics kind of bleed into many other regions. Like talking about trading last hits covers, or trading hits with your opponent covers roaming. From a support perspective, it covers playing 1v1 heroes mid, it covers offlaners versus carries. So the episode focusing just on the 1v1 matchups would have been a lot of repetition for things we've already covered. Sure. So it's going to be a mix of summary for talking about 1v1 matchups and kind of trying to understand why matchups go the way they do. And then we're going to tie that into drafting, which is ultimately the base level of knowing whether a draft is going to be good. Do I know, based on what heroes they have and what heroes I have, that my lanes are going to be slightly better, and can I push that into a certain way, and then trying to predict where the game flow will go. And obviously it's a very, very broad thing, but there are some like pillars that we can kind of look at and hopefully use that to influence our knowledge.
So this is like,
making.
Because you talk about those pillars, like, so this is they have chosen an Ember Spirit in mid, and I really like Viper, so I'm going to choose Viper to shit on Ember in mid, when we're not even thinking about the entire sense of the game yet. But just in that little circumstance, we can say that this is at least a good draft pick for this reason, ignoring other factors.
So that's the stuff we'll focus on at the start of the episode, and then later we'll talk about some of those other things. So
Sick.
All right, so let's do a quick summary first. Clip number 1, if you will. This is a lot of stuff we talked about in the first probably two to 5 episodes, something like that. But these are the base attributes of your hero. You have base stats, how much strength, agility, and int you have, which affects your attack speed, your base armor, your base damage. You actually have a base damage number that's separate that gets added into that. Base armor, movement speed, attack animation, which is the time that it takes for your hero to throw their projectile. Then you have projectile speed, which is the speed that your projectile travels. Like once you throw your magical ball of energy, how fast does it get from your hand to the target, which delays the time that you can last hit. And then things like being ranged versus melee and the advantages that those provide. So I guess the one that I want to ask the most question about is ranged and melee. If you could characterize typical attributes for melee heroes in comparison compared to ranged ones for these stats that we just talked about, what would you say is the general trend for melee versus ranged?
The general trend, as I understand it, is that typically melee heroes are a little more sturdy than their ranged counterparts. Don't necessarily deal more damage when they get up close, but I'm still going to say it slightly skews to melee that they deal more damage when they get up close. And I actually don't know about the movement speed. My assumption would be that essentially all of the stats are a little higher. Better base stats, better base damage, better base armor, better base movement speed. And I think that those vary, but I think that the sturdiness is probably more pronounced than the damage. Maybe the armor is more pronounced than the damage. Movement speed, I'm not sure on, but my intuition is that they're faster. And I realize that I almost only play short range or melee heroes as my favorite ones.
Except for Lena.
Except for Lena and Zeus. And Nature's Prophet. Listen, I think I just lied to you. I apologize for that, but go on.
That's okay. Your other generalizations were pretty accurate. Yeah, I would say melee heroes generally have higher base damage, definitely higher base armor. You almost always higher starting HP for those purposes, higher movement speed because they have to make up for the fact that they have a range disadvantage. And the part of the other reason that they have to do that is because if you're a melee hero and you go to get a last hit, your opponents can harass you. And to offset that, you have to buy a stout shield usually, which means that that's more starting gold that you can't spend on plus damage items like a Wraith Band or Bracer or something like that. Not that anybody would buy Bracer, but Quelling Blade, things like that. So,
come on, Skyrats like bracers.
They do, but they can't start. It's too expensive to start as an item is all. It's just not worth it. So those are your basic hero stats. Those absolutely matter a lot when you talk about 1v1 matchups. It feels very different to play an Ogre than it does to play an IO or I don't know, some other hero that doesn't have the same armor. And the other section we can talk about is just laning tricks. And these are lots of things we've covered so far. Things like making sure that when you use a nuke, you get a last hit and you harass your opponent. Or that when you do use your nukes, you use it for a reason. Even if it's not harassing your opponent, it could be pushing a lane so that you can grab a rune and they have to go save their tower or last hit under tower. We could talk about stuff like buying more early stat items that your base damage goes up. That way you have a better ability to get a last hit over your opponent. I watched a game last night, just a pub game, where Lena was laning against a TA, and the Lena bought 2 Null Talismans to start the game.
Yeah, 40R did that a lot at Kiev, was it?
Yeah, and I don't even think he bought them to build a Veil. He actually just bought 2 Null Talismans so that he could more compete with somebody else, TA who has really high base damage. And then he bought boots, and then he bought a bottle. So he didn't even prioritize runes that much that game because he was against a TA who also had an IO, and the IO is almost always going to grab the runes first. So he just thought like, I'm going to get as much base damage. So there's lots of little things you can do to try to get edges over your opponents, and lots of subtle last-hitting tricks, pulling the creeps, things like that, fake denying, little things like that, having more mobility, so small tricks like that. Don't want to make too many clips of this because it's stuff we've already covered more or less. There's also the other basic principle, which is kind of related to the holy trifecta, which is how much sustainability and regen do you have in your lane? Who's going to run out of regen first? Can you out harass somebody to get them out of the lane, or can you kill them to get them out of the lane as well? And that's all based on regen, generally covered by bottle, by other allies maybe giving you heals, or shrines if they are available. So those are obviously another aspect.
This feels like the number one error that happens at my low MMR games is people just literally do not buy regen.
Yeah, or they'll buy like 1 tango and be like, yeah, this will be fine.
My favorite is the 1 fairy fire. It's like fairy fire, branch, boots. And they're like, all right, let's go to lane. We're fast.
And then if they need regen, they'll ask for 1 pool tango, and they'll drop their ironwood branch into a tree, just eat that tango for double the value, right? Just like super opposite of what makes them efficient, pretty much. So yeah, regen. These are the basically three things that I want you to keep in mind: is hero stats, laning tricks, like what kinds of tools do you have to make the lane go better, and regen.
Yeah.
And then finally, the one area that we haven't really talked about a huge amount. We've touched on it, but vulnerability. How likely are you to be ganked? So once you play clip number 2, it's just a little bit of text here, but should lay out some of these aspects that we haven't touched on too much. So, simple things. How likely are you to be ganked as a hero? What are your base stats like? Are you difficult to right-click? Do you take more right-clicks than your opponents?
Yeah.
Can you be pressured by a roaming hero? That's usually the case for somebody that is ideally slow, has low armor, doesn't have an active disable, so they can't stop somebody from hitting them and get some space between their chaser, and then having an escape in times of danger. So like a Queen of Pain, for example, is difficult to gank mid, or like we showed last week, a lone druid with a bear that can roar somebody to make them run away. So those are the other aspect as well.
And the how likely are you to be ganked? I have found this to be a really big difference when I play Viper than when I play Lina. Actually, I haven't played Viper in quite a while. But I would always have this sensation when I was Viper that if I would try to push the lane, because I just attacked so damn slowly, and because I would clear a wave so slowly, it never felt safe to ever whack at the tower or even go up to their side of the river if I couldn't see where they were, because I would just get ganked so easily. And this made me way more reticent to push towers. And I think you may remember my resilience to pushing towers. It was like, wait, but then I'll die! You're like, just look at the map, man, and just run back if you think you're gonna die. I'm like, but then I'm not doing anything. It was like so hard to like process that.
And all that stuff comes from you doing it and dying and just learning passively. And all, there's lots of ways to solve those problems. Like you realize, use Lina, nuke the wave, let the creeps push the tower while you do something else. Then they don't necessarily know where you are. So these are all the things that I want you to keep in mind when we talk about drafting for 1v1s, basically. Right. So the other most important part when we're talking about drafting and heroes in the lane,
wait, Kevin, your internet's shitting the bed. I'm losing you. Oh my God, Kevin, are you uploading something? Are you downloading something? Can you unplug it and plug it back in again? No, oh my God, Kevin.
Red.
Oh shit.
There's a problem with the internet connection between you two.
Yeah, there is. I can confirm.
I trust you, Skype, to solve this problem, unless you want to recall. But,
oh my God, I'm gonna hang up. I'm gonna call you back. Oh my God.
All right, I don't know if it's gonna help. We'll try though.
Oh, that was devastating to me. My Skype just completely crashed. Guys, my Skype crashed. My Skype crashed. It's okay. It's okay. No, don't worry. We're gonna work through technical difficulties. Oh, okay, quickly. SKYPE. Enter. Go. Come on. Oh, it's booting up. Oh, the energy. I can feel it. All right. It says call failed. Here we go, Kevin. It's nice and loud. Kevin, are you there?
Yes, but it seems that my webcam has crashed. And either way, I've still got red bars. All right, so I'm gonna.
Hey, look, it's Kevin. Hey, no, this is a really nice photo of you. It's when you really thought that more hair suited you.
Do you know what room that is?
I assume that it is your room from Korea that you trained in to win the Nexon Cup.
No, Sean, that is the room that Dota 2 was developed in.
What room is that?
It's in Valve Studios. That was at TI2. I got to play pub on, I think, Robin's computer, the guy that made TF2, and he had this like dual monitor setup that didn't have a border, and it was real difficult. I had to like fuck up all of his Windows settings to try to play one pub.
That's good. Suck a fat one, Robin.
That was like 5 years ago. All right. Gonna do some text solving.
Okay.
1 second.
All right, okay. Like, you can hear from the echo that Kevin is currently under his computer, but this is okay. What Kevin is doing is he's currently on all fours. Hold that image in your mind, but now, append that image. Imagine that Kevin has headphones on, wireless headphones, so he can still hear me while he's on all fours, reaching in, plugging it in, not getting it to work, rotating the USB, trying again, it doesn't work. He rotates it a third time, and for whatever reason it works. Why do USBs work that way? Oh, I swear to God, there's little gnomes operating those fuckers in the back, just moving the little white bar left and right. I don't even know what the bar does, but that's what I look for. I look and I see, okay, white bar on the left, black bar on the right. It should work, but it doesn't work. Fucking USBs, am I right, man? All right, Kevin. Kevin, so, is it back? Is it back?
I plugged it in and out, and I still don't have a camera button on my Skype, so maybe I'm gonna...
Close Skype completely. Get out of here. Get out of here, Kevin. Get out of here. Leave. Okay, now, Kevin's leaving. Kevin's leaving at this point in time. Did we accidentally show the link to Kevin's private video folder? No, we didn't. Okay. what's going to happen is Kevin is currently rebooting Skype. Skype is both one of the greatest pieces of technology that has ever been invented. It allows voice communication to anyone in the world for free in an instant over your computer. Oh, that's so amazing. But also, if you're a streamer, it crashes all the time, it glitches, it doesn't detect your webcam, it doesn't detect your microphone, it starts changing your audio settings. Are you fucking kidding me? And that really shows how demented humans have become. I swear, you could give me a teleportation device, and I would be like, this is the shittiest teleporter. Seriously, Skype, it's great. I apologize for all the times I bitch about it, but seriously, would you fucking work every now and again? Come on, man. All right, let's get the communication across the United States functioning and working. Kevin, it works. Kevin, you're back, but Kevin, you look like undying right now. You look pale and green and sad. No. Oh, God, oh, Jesus.
I ruined it.
Did you break it again?
This is what happened. It was working. Then I pressed the button accidentally to turn it off. And now it won't let me turn it back on. What is this?
Then Kevin, I think you need to hang up and come back again.
Again? Okay.
Okay, Kevin, I'm hanging up on you. I gotta get rid of him. I gotta get rid of this man. I can't believe it. All right, Kevin, he's gonna try again. It's gonna be attempt number 3. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna go ahead and take a drink here. Okay, this is Day 9 Learns Dota with Coach Purge and with webcam issues. It's the full title. As a subtitle to the subtitle, Gamer Sensei does not provide any services to help you learn how to fix your webcam, but Gamer Sensei does help you get good at the games you play. I drooled a little bit. Gamer Sensei, the sponsor for this show, doesn't mind if I interrupt them because Kevin's back. Okay. Kevin from heaven, are you back? Are you okay? Are you alive?
I am alive.
Are your knees scuffed up from being on all fours?
I'm sorry? Are my knees okay? Is that what you asked?
Are they scuffed? Are they scuffed?
No, it was
scuffed.
Luckily, I have carpet down there. And my dog didn't attack me.
That's great. So great. Also, your webcam settings have decided that you need to be a ghostly pale hue. You actually look like you've been dead for 6 hours.
I put them up a little bit.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's the orange I like. No, that's a little bad. No, go back. Orange.
There.
Orange. A little more orange.
A little more orange.
A little more orange. There. That's the hue that I know you for.
Okay, we'll take that one as gospel. And Skype tried to update me when I first logged back in, dude. That was scary as hell.
Oh wow.
What's our connection? Oh, nice white bars. Okay, we can continue the show, I think.
These are the whitest bars. Almost as white as your face was when your webcam settings were bad.
Well, hopefully that's all over. Okay, where were we? Talking about webcams.
Yeah, so to recap, we talked about the hero qualities that are between melee and range, and we talked about some of the vulnerabilities to consider, and you were about to go into the idea of taking this and applying it to hero roles and drafting.
Not true. You're taking too far steps. We're talking about.
I certainly sounded confident. Okay, that's
good.
right.
It was good.
That was good. No, that's how I always save a show. Is I just confidently say something that's not true.
That's how you sound right before you die in a stupid way. You're like, I'm gonna kill this guy, and then he instantly just Laguna blades you.
There's no way that sliding glass door is gonna fall on me.
Exactly.
Okay,
so
cool.
Let's talk about hero skills and the impact of those. So this is most of the way that you have to think about. At least this is a lot of the way that I think about lane matchups during draft screens, because I try to think of the mechanics, how the skill works, and what is that going to be strong against. So for example, the absolute basic is high amounts of nuke damage beats heroes that have
low amounts of HP.
Exactly. So you can kill them in short periods of time, and that will give you an advantage. So what is that nuke power bad against then?
Characters with high HP, and of course I'm saying H for our British viewers.
Or magic resistance would be the other one. Or magic immunity. That way those don't even affect them. So those are some of the other characteristics that we have to consider. So did you see that?
I know. I think maybe you just had an idea. That's not what I saw.
Lightning actually struck in my room.
Oh.
I don't know.
Was that it? Is that
quiet lightnings though?
There is a paparazzi who was trying to look for the perfect photo, and he just snapped it.
Yeah, my dog stepped on the power cord and the lights turned off and on. It just bumped the light switch, something like that. Okay, so let's hop into 3A. We'll do some of the basic aspects of skills. Pudge Rot's the best example probably because it is probably the best chasing skill in the entire game, and it's the best level 1 skill in the game for chasing for this purpose because it has 100% uptime. It never goes down, so it means you can always chase somebody all the way down. So that makes Pudge an amazing tri-lane hero or support in the early game if you can find somebody when they're far away from the tower. It doesn't work though when your opponent can choose to fight you, because it means that you're still going to die before they do, because Rot does equal damage to yourself as it does to them. So this is a skill that we can potentially exploit in a certain way. It does allow you to chase your opponent and kill them, but there are limitations to it, and we have to consider what those are.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another hero, for example, Slark. You thought Slark was the bee's knees, then you played him a bunch. What are Slark's weaknesses? What are his strengths in lane? Like, talk about his skills, basically. What are they good at? What's the hero weak at, though?
I would say that early game, I would say that he has some good escape in the form of his pounce. He can dart out, and he has his Purge to dart out, and I have my Purge as well.
You do? Is that all you got?
No, I'm sorry. I just all of a sudden I had an idea and I had to share it. But I think that he is very weak early on at man fighting. He just seems to be very flimsy and fragile. And sure, his pounce can be used to pick someone off, but I think that that's only if there's a 2-on-1 that happens. I have just found Slark very easy to kill until level 6, which again allows him to run away and regenerate, but still makes him a little bit more vulnerable at man fighting.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So in some ways, he's actually very similar to Pudge, because like Pudge, he's very good at chasing, but if you actually end up fighting the guy directly, then Slark can have some issues. But Pounce is a 3.5 second leash, I believe, so that gives you 3.5 seconds to attack somebody before they can run away. It's very good in certain situations. And yeah, Dark Pack's good at doing damage, but it's also brings some negatives as well, so something to consider. What about Darkseer? Have you ever played Darkseer before?
I've never played him.
Okay, do you know how he works?
My understanding of... Okay, so I'll note. I think of heroes as the big ideas and the little ideas of the hero. Like Rubik, for instance, can steal spells, and he can lift you up in the air. Like, these are the big things. And yeah, he has like a little damagey lightning thing. As a detail, he has his passive, but I tend to completely overlook the little details of most heroes. So when I think about Darkseer, there's his bubble that goes... and it shoots things. There's his...
Iron Chill.
Yeah, there's his mega sprint that goes... Boo-doo. There is his vacuum that sucks everyone in, and then there's a wall, and I know it's bad to go through it because it makes dark me, but I don't know the specifics of any of those abilities.
I mean, you nailed it, man. I think the most important one is
even the sound effect.
Yeah, you had that sound effect, dude. If there was a challenge here for your compendium points or something, you would have definitely passed that one for sure.
I don't know if this works, but I need to make a mod where I replace every single audio file in the game with my voice.
I think they unfortunately removed that possibility, but I think you should just make it anyways for the enjoyment. Anyways, the value about Darkseer is that he doesn't just have an ability that puts a shell on himself at level 1 that does 30 damage per second, which is a ton of damage output compared to most skills, but it's that he could put that on multiple people at the same time. And then all of a sudden, you're taking a skill and you're amplifying it with just the alteration of have more bodies near you, for example. So take a Darkseer, put him in a dual lane, and all of a sudden his value in the laning stage is way higher. So just try to think about things like that. Something about your tangent about the Rubik, actually, I thought was really interesting, is that there was a period of time where Rubik was popular as a Batrider counter. Do you have any idea why?
Popular as a Batrider counter. Well, there's dumb things, like if Batrider lassos, you just spell steal and lasso him right back, but I assume that the idea of the burning on the ground plus the passive... It's a magic resistance aura on Rubik, right?
It is, yeah.
And I don't know if the fire does physical or magic damage, but I'm going to surmise that.
It's all magic, yeah. Unless you Staking Napalm somebody and right-click, which could be seen as fire damage, but it's physical. What you said is correct, but the main reason that he was seen as okay versus Batrider is because he has no cast animation time. So that means if a Batrider lassos your ally, before they turn and force staff away, you can instantly lift them with telekinesis, which basically guarantees that for 2.25 seconds, it offsets the lasso. So even if it might seem like something really small, or it might not be the most obvious, you have to consider this when you're talking about drafting. Oh, another lightning blast. You have to consider this when you talk about drafting because of the fact that it could be a lane advantage that you get. It could be a late game advantage. There's implications at many stages of the game, and you have to kind of like grab those as a whole and think about what the combos are to make them really strong.
So if I'm gleaning what you're saying, there's things in drafting that are more simplistic, like Ember Spirit doesn't have a very good early game in general. So if you're Viper, you can exploit that not just by the fact that Ember's a little weaker early game, but also the fact that Viper's ranged and you can easily chase down with your Q ability. That's like a sort of a big, I almost want to say a consideration that will pan out over the course of many minutes, where you will over time gradually see that Viper is chipping away.
Mm-hmm.
But just as important are little tiny things like no cast animation on this specific ability to counter that specific hero's big lasso.
Mm-hmm. Which, if Batraider's whole purpose is to lasso somebody, that's all you need. Or you can grab an Oracle who can debuff, remove a stun basically from one of your allies. Right. Therefore, if you offset lasso, Batraider's whole purpose in a team fight is kind of countered. Like, yeah, he's going to do some magic damage, but that's not the primary reason to have the hero.
And if I go one step further, take Tidehunter. Tidehunter can get a lot of farm and do a lot of cool, useful things, especially because Oghanims is so sick. But his biggest thing is Ravage. So what a team might say is, we're going to try to shut down Tidehunter as much as possible so that he's literally just a Ravager and then a weak, crappy body. And here's our counter to Ravage. So they need that combo play of like shut down Tidehunter and then here's our counter to Ravage.
That absolutely could be a strategy. It's maybe not. I'm not going to touch on it being viable or not, because in my mind, ganking Tide might be hard. But you could think like, I'm going to devote an aggro. I'm going to devote a tri-lane to the
he's
Tide.
He's on this video that we have, so I have to bring it up. Yeah.
Okay, well, go ahead. You can start playing it. Go ahead.
Okay.
We'll talk about Tidehunter. Tidehunter is fairly strong as an offlaner because he has very good base stats. His base movement speed's not bad. It's 305. And with Anchor Smash, you reduce the physical damage that your opponents do as a percentage. I think level 1's like 40% or something. So if this Lich hits for 50 damage, he's really only going to hit for 30 damage afterwards. And once he gets a couple levels in Kraken Shell, which damage blocks, the Lich hitting low and damage block happening means that Lich would only hit for like 20 damage or something, 18 damage, which ultimately means that Tide's not going to have a bad time. And he can pretty much always be in the creep wave, zoning his opponents, using Anchor Smash on the Slark if Slark comes forward, and basically just getting way more out of this lane than he should as an offlaner.
Right.
So great benefit for Tide. Any physical damage done to him is going to be easily dealt with as the hero. So great hero for that reason. If you want to play clip number 3B, I believe. Here's another example.
Yeah.
We got Bane here. You love Bane. What's good about Bane?
Bane has pretty much just great all-around based stats. His range is quite low. And yeah, he's very, very good early game. He has weaknesses late game because he only has single point target abilities. But there's my summary.
And skill-wise, what's the best thing about him at level 1?
He's amazing at trading because he can just suck the pure damage right out of you for hell.
Exactly. So Tide can't stop the pure damage, and any trading that he does against the Bane is going to be slightly offset by Brain Sap, which ultimately provides a better way to deal with him than what a Lich can provide at level 1, for example. So if we're thinking about the difference between a Bane versus a Lich in this circumstance, Bane is way better because all of a sudden Bane's had a really good trade advantage against Tidehunter, which means that he actually does have to run out of experience range and he doesn't get as out of control. Bane's other skill is Nightmare, and I almost always don't recommend getting Nightmare as a skill. But if your other hero in the lane is something like a Juggernaut who does a lot of magic damage at level 1 due to Blade Fury, I think it's like 400 magic damage with one spin full duration.
Far too much.
It gives you the opportunity to actually go for really simple kills here. So even if Tide uses Anchor Smash, it doesn't matter because it doesn't actually reduce the spin damage he takes, and he's actually a really easy kill. So, in
nice job, Uncle Bulgaria.
So in drafting for that game, for example, Tide's difficult to zone. You grab heroes that deal with his skill solutions, and you have a pairing that will ensure you can kill your opponent. And if you do that, it doesn't matter if you didn't pull. It doesn't matter if you missed your pulls. It doesn't matter if you can't zone the guy. You just kill him so many times that it becomes easier to do that in the future.
Yeah.
All aspects that you should think about during drafting. How is your lane going to go good? And then in the late game, how do your things fit together?
So we almost might say, Sean, stop first picking.
Stop first picking is definitely a really good recommendation because that is exactly what you should be doing when you're looking at what heroes exist. You should think like, where's that guy going to go? Will I have to lane against him? What heroes could I pick in my role that will be okay in the lane and then transition well late game? That's what you should always be thinking. That's why the highest MMR players should almost always pick last because they're the best players. They probably want to have solutions at all stages of the game. They probably want to make sure their lane goes as good as possible and they aren't gimped by having a bad matchup.
Then much later in this episode, but near the end, I want to ask, what do you first pick? Like, what should a team first pick? Like, what's a sensible first pick? But I want to...
I will answer that question now. It's fine. You would want to pick stuff that is fairly neutral. And by that, I mean, there are heroes that, let's say you have a stun. Stuns are good against... Sure, there's some counters, like Lifestealer can rage it and dodge the stun maybe, but stuns are pretty much good against everybody. Maybe you're safe as a whole, and maybe you have some generic benefits that kind of covers all the bases. You're decent at lane, you're decent at team fighting, you're decent at ganking, but you're not really good at one thing. And usually what happens in pro games especially is the pro players will grab heroes that are really good at something specific, and they will fit it into the game in a way where it allows you to really exploit that. Like they'll grab, I don't know, maybe they'll do a Pugna draft, a hero that's never touched, but they'll put it in a pushing lineup because Pugna's Netherblast hits towers. So Pugna, seen as a bad hero, is never picked. But try him sometime. You'll it's kind of like Lina, but you fall off at like 25 minutes. He's actually really fun. So you might pick Pugna, think like, I want to push towers with this because he's really good at pushing towers because your spells affect towers, and then all of a sudden use him in that way, and it doesn't matter that he doesn't have a hard disable, or it doesn't matter that you're countered by X, Y, and Z heroes because your plan is to end the game at 30 minutes or give you advantage for your Drow Ranger to carry later or something. I don't know. So always keep that stuff in mind. Have we taken a look? Why don't you click on clip number 4 now? So this is actually, this might be the wrong one. Okay, we already played this one, right? Yeah. The one
I don't know. Let me. This is clip 4. Is this the same as clip 3?
Okay.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh shit. Oh Jesus. Oh god. All right. Should we do clip 4?
Are they the same? Okay.
I don't. They have the first. They have the same first 5 seconds. Yes, they appear to be the same.
All right, I'm going to assume they're the same. I think there used to be another transition document, but I think it might have gotten deleted. It's not a big deal.
Cool.
I think I'm making the mistake.
Quickly get down on all hands and knees and unplug it and plug it back in again, Kevin.
I don't think that's going to solve this problem here, unless you want me to replug your computer.
Damn, I lost my job in Time Warner Cable Tech Support.
Let me just double check. Is this the one? Nah, it's not. Okay, I'm just going to move on. Basically, what we want to talk about now is what happens after the laning stage, because we talked about the laning stage a lot. We covered some of those other aspects a little bit, talking about Pugna. But there's basically some staples. The staples are usually... Can you tell me? I want to see if you are aware of them or not. What would you say are generic terms for game impact of various heroes? Like, what's the most generic term for like what your hero does late game?
Okay, for late game. Okay.
And I'm not saying roles. I'm saying like play styles.
Play styles. I learned there were 3 terms that were given to me. Just like in Starcraft, you can do attacking, expanding, or teching. Those are your 3 choices.
Okay.
In technically not attacking, but army building. But I'm not going to go into Starcraft. I'm suddenly fuck all this shit. Okay, listen. I hear that there is pushing, there is ganking, and there is team fighting or farming. Some set of those words. But I know it's like team fighting, ganking, and pushing, some shit like that.
Mm-hmm. And how would you say that those strategies interact?
Well, if you're... I don't know. I'm going to wing it, though. I'm going to wing it. Well, if your team is trying to do a lot of pushing, or in particular split pushing, they're going to be vulnerable to lineups that are good at ganking. And lineups that are good at ganking, I would assume, would struggle much more in big teamfight compositions. And if you're a big teamfight composition, then someone who's ratting and just pushing you is going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you big. So there's your triangle. I made a triangle out of it, Kevin.
Okay. Do you want to play the image? The teammate gank push.
Yeah, for any of you who don't know, you can actually put an image into VLC and it will play it. So here's the image. So ganking, greater than team fighting, greater than pushing, greater than ganking. Did I do it in the exact opposite order?
You said that gankers were bad against team fighters.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
But you did say that team fight was... I don't remember. Let's not confuse ourselves with what your idea was. Let's just try to set the stage as correct, okay? I don't... You were like partially right, but not fully right was my impression, but I might have been wrong. Okay, so pushing. This is basically get some levels, group with your team as 5, and you push towers. And by doing so...
Oh, is that the definition of pushing? Because I would have put Nature's Prophet, or Slark, who rat often, as pushing.
Split pushing is definitely an aspect, but usually when you do the discussion about these 3 characteristics, it's mostly about basically like TI4 Grand Finals. That's pushing. That was pushing. You group as 5 after some levels, you go to a lane, you kill the tower, then you kill the next tower, then you kill the next tower, the next tower, and then you're like going high ground at 20 minutes. The goal is to kill towers, get gold advantage, and then make sure that your towers don't die. And by doing so, you have a big gold advantage over your opponents, which makes going high ground easier. So pushing is generally countered by team fighting. Do you know why?
I would assume that it is because the skill sets that are required to push early and to do well are different than the skills that are good at big groups of heroes. And given the fact that if you're a push comp that, like you said, is in 5, well, our 5 is going to be better than your 5. Like, Black Hole sucks at destroying towers, but holy god is it good at shitting on enemies.
Exactly. So the purpose is when they group 5 to push a tower, you get there. And it doesn't matter that you might have less gold. The purpose is that you have about equal levels, and you use those equal levels for better effect than their skills do, because your skills are better at team fighting. If you do a Ravage into a Black Hole, people are going to die. And that means that their push stops, and it delays them respawning and grouping up to push again. And in the meantime, hopefully you've gained even more gold advance. And that's why team fighting usually beats pushing. Again, this is all still relevant about how well the laning stage goes. You could have a team fight lineup that just has a really bad laning stage, doesn't hit their level 6 on one of their supports in time, and as a result loses that fight at the first tower, which basically means the game is kind of snowballing. But general principles there. All right, why is ganking good against team fighting? That was the one I think you got wrong.
No, I actually got every single one wrong. Because my thought was that a pushing composition meant lots of split pushing, and therefore ganking would be good at picking off individual split pushers. Individual split pushers would avoid a team fight, and because this team is all balled up together, they're ungankable, right? Okay. That's was my understanding.
You just lack definition of what they were generally seen as, but what you just said there was all right. Like, if you're split pushing, gankers are very good against that, absolutely.
Right. So what would make gankers good against team fighters? This is me guessing, but my presumption would be that ganking heroes are avoiding team fights and looking for pickoffs, so the team fight abilities never get to go off.
That's exactly right, because a team fight lineup, they probably want to do a 5 versus enemy team fight, right? So as a ganking lineup or a lineup that is better at either split pushing or ganking, you don't want to attack them 5v5. So what you should do is split push other lanes, try to get them to spread out, and when you do, that's when you allow your ganking skills to be really profitable. So you're exactly right on that.
My cat just bit my hand.
And then why does pushing beat ganking?
Because you're balled up as 5, so there's no opportunity to even do pickoffs.
Assuming you have sentries,
right?
Basically, because a lot of times those heroes are invisible. So yeah, that basically covers the 3 basic principles of drafting. Is what aspects of a lineup are you crafting? Now this is like a theory that's probably like, I don't know, 4 years old or something. This was like a cool thing to say as a caster like 4 years ago, right? But now everything's gotten so split apart and fragmented. Everything's very complex now. Your strategies will still involve aspects like this,
sure,
but that's more theory stuff. And in a lot of ways, split pushing should be included in that. Actually, can you go back to the image really quick?
So with rapid image retrieval.
Fast. With split pushing in mind, what would prevent you from split pushing effectively against a 5-man pushing lineup?
What would prevent me from split pushing effectively against a 5-man pushing lineup? Does this include, like, they'll kill our shit faster?
Yes.
Well, that's probably the biggest one, because I think you saw a game that I played last Friday, where I called to trade barracks, and it was just a terrible idea.
Yes.
But what else would make a split pusher weak against a pushing lineup? I mean, I don't know. I guess that the pushing lineup also has some nice gank pickoff tools in there.
That could work. Yeah, and this is how we start getting like fragmentations of the lineups. Is that you think about the things that counter you, and you may want to draft something, even if it's just one hero that beats that. So, for example, let's say they have a 5-man push lineup and you're playing Viper, and you're like, time to split push. It's a shit time, right? You don't have AoE, so you can't clear the creep waves rapidly to split push effectively.
Right.
And when you do actually take the team fight, Viper's like okay at team fighting, but he's not amazing.
Yeah.
So it's like you have some weaknesses. So when you're drafting, it's very important to keep those things in mind. Do you have enough wave clear? Can you slow their push if they're pushing? Do you have a Coddle or a Tinker, for example? That's very good at stopping the creeps from hitting the tower as long. But lately, it's not as much about killing the creeps. It's more about being able to engage on a team that is safely pinging away of towers, like heroes that have Dragon Lances, the basically range perks, BKBs on Drow. That way she can just hit a tower and know that she won't die when the fight starts. So the So rather than these three things as the basis of drafting now, it's more like the things you need to check off. And this is a lot of the stuff that like either pro players I'm sitting in rooms when I'm watching games, or coaches say they think like, oh, they need a tower hitter, or that's usually the big one, or they need a Roshan option. So now drafting is not just around these three basic principles. It's like these aspects of a principle, but also about, do you have somebody that can hit the tower safely? Do you have somebody that can take Roshan easily, which might be a hero that builds a medallion? It might be a Slardar. It might be a Ursa. And then it also has to do with things like wave clear, wave push, jungle farming. So it's a lot deeper now, basically. There's so much more. Sorry if that was loud. So much more.
It's a lot deeper, and you punch the microphone for emphasis. Well, I mean, I feel like the same thing is true in Starcraft, where there's really big, basic conceptual things, like if you are expanding too much, you will lose to someone who builds an army and attacks you. So make sure you have enough defense before you expand. But then it starts to get, like, very subtle, where if you watch pros play, everyone's taking, like, 3 bases and teching, and they have, like, 3 dudes. And then all of a sudden one of them builds like 8 gateways, a warp prism, and then just kills the other guy. And it's like, oh yes, of course he's going for the big heavy army build. But it's like really hard to see it because there's like so much reading that's going on, and everything is so flexible and about to dip into one extreme at any point, but then it doesn't, so it's hard to feel that, you know?
But the difference between Dota and StarCraft in that way is that all of those choices are made more rapidly, and you can make them any game, right? Whereas if you're picking heroes, you know what the limitations of the heroes are. There's not that much flexibility in which ways you can go. So with the exception of not knowing where your heroes are on the map,
that is
you
absolutely
can
true,
still predict what is going to happen at most cases, because you should
under
know
the presumption that you are already determined to do a specific strategy would function that way. But you're totally right. You can change what the fuck you're doing in StarCraft completely, and you can't in Dota.
Yeah, and there's obviously tells and stuff, but yeah, it's kind of similar, definitely similar principles. So let's hop into some drafting then. Some drafting examples at least. Oh, my VLC closed randomly. Maybe it was my lightning flash. Who knows? Why don't we play clips number 5? Perfect. Okay, so if you want to just pause these, we're going to go through them one by one, but these are draft openers, basically. So what I want you to think is, if these are the first 2 picks that I'm encountering in Captain's Mode, or let's say, it doesn't have to be Captain's Mode, it could be your all-pick game. And let's say every pub game you play, your opponents are perfectly coordinating with a draft in mind, but really, you can still look at these and be like, what does this provide? Where are their lanes going to be? And what might I want to do to counteract that? So I know you don't have the largest hero variety knowledge, but I want you to give me what you can based on the first 2 picks in all these instances.
I know how all these fuck men work. All right, we got Kengar, Tuskar, and we got the Enigma. So this is a massive ganker and team fighter. The Black Hole and Tusk's Mega Ball and his ice hut. his half ice hut, his ice horseshoe. So right away, what was the question that you asked me? I know you asked me to do something with these, and I literally blanked out because I started to look through all the heroes. But please ask me again. I'm ready to go.
Okay, so let's think about let's take the heroes that you like. Let's say Lina first.
Sure.
Have you ever played Lina against Tusk, against Enigma?
Yeah, I mean, against Enigma, I feel like most of the heroes that I play against Enigma, it's just the same thing. Be very, very careful to stay spread out, and I would be very comfortable doing that with Lina. I would stay at the back. That's totally fine. Tusk would be an issue in mid because Tusk is very good at ganking. And so what I might want to do is, depending on the matchup in mid, we might say I should go for a slightly tankier mid player, or a slightly more durable, less gankable mid. But I would probably just choose Lina and clear the wave and not push very hard.
Is there any other option that you could do as Lina if you're forced to against a Tusk to be more survivable against us?
To be more survivable against Tusk. Raindrops, I guess?
Raindrops would be really good. The thought I had was Observer Ward, protecting the direction that you plan him to gank.
Oh, right.
Whereas if I'm against a Dazzle and some other support that doesn't gank very well, I probably won't care about the Observer Wards. There's definitely small adjustments that you can make.
Yeah, Observer Wards obviously help against everyone, but they'll specifically help against Tusk, who can just roll in from on high.
Mm-hmm. So what about if you saw this lineup and you wanted to abuse it instead? Is there anything that sticks out to you right now?
If I want to abuse it. Let me think. So some ideas that come to mind that I don't feel super confident in. A lot of Enigmas like to jungle.
Mm-hmm.
So doing something like a Ricky or a Bounty Hunter to fuck with that would be nice. There's a lot of Eidolons there. So Earthshaker, I feel like is nice if there's Eidolons, but that doesn't seem to happen that much in team fights.
Yeah. It's more an early game thing.
I don't know how to exploit Tusk other than to not let him gank. I just don't know enough about counters against him. I've only played with a Tusk on my team, and they're kick-ass.
The way that Tusk is, other than his roaming, which you've experienced, the other way that Tusk is really good in team fights is Snowball. Because you can pull allies into it. So what things would that counter? Tusk using Snowball to pull allies into it.
Can it pull in stunned heroes?
Yes.
Well, it would obviously counter stuns. It would just help get your carry out of a bad spot. And so...
How about like Bane? Fiends grip somebody, and Tusk snowballs them in. So can save somebody that's arrowed, Fiends gripped, long duration stuns basically. So maybe you might want to consider picking somebody that is okay at counteracting Tusk's roaming that isn't also countered by an ally getting snowballed. Or you wouldn't want to pick Sand King, for example, usually, because if an Epicenter comes in, he can cast Snowball and pull everybody in while the damage is dealt, and then come out afterwards. So things like that to consider. Also keep in mind that Enigma's actually very often in the pro scene right now being picked as an offlane hero, not a jungler, because he's much slower at jungle than he used to be. So you may want to do something like, if Tusk wasn't picked, maybe pick Tusk against Enigma in the lane, because that allows you to get close to him because he doesn't defend himself very well, and can guarantee that he dies because he doesn't have good escapes with Ice Wall.
And if he's if he's an offlane, you can also Sven to kill off all the Eidolons and weaken his presence there. Which
is easily worth a Stormbolt and a couple right clicks if you can kill him, because it's like 90 gold or something. So yeah, all things that you could think about during the drafting stage. Okay. Do you want to move on? Next one?
Yes, sir, yes, sir. All right.
The big reveal. You didn't see it coming. It's Shadow Fiend.
Oh shit, your internet again, Kevin. Oh fuck.
It's yellow.
It's yellow? Are we green? Okay.
Okay, it's back to white. We're good.
So, Shadow Fiend is... I just think Shadow Fiend is one of the best mids in the game right now. He's so good. He doesn't have any good escapes. He just deals bursty burst damage. So, anyone that can do good ganks against him early on, I would really like. Such as Enchantress. I have killed many a Shadow Fiend early on. Also, because he's very good at wave clearing to push... I am actually comfortable with Alina against Shadow Fiend, just someone that can counter clear and shove back. I've had a couple of silly games against Shadow Fiend where he clears the wave, I clear the wave, we both go to the jungle, we both come back, we both clear the waves, we go back to the jungle. So something like that. That would be my answer for Shadow Fiend. Late game, I have no sense of what would make Shadow Fiend uniquely vulnerable other than the fact that he just has no escapes or disables. He's just a giant damage factory. Now, Clockwork. Clockwork.
Well, what lanes do you think Clockwork will be?
Oh, offlane. Hundo Pacento.
It's actually being played as a support primarily in the pro scene right now, but does sometimes see offlane, yeah.
Huh.
The thought being that, what happens when you hit 6 on Clockwork?
You can just insta bomb in on someone.
Yeah, and ideally it's probably not on your lane because they're going to expect it, right? So you'd probably go somewhere to gank. And by doing that, then your lane's empty. And you're not farming, and unless you get a kill, you're not getting gold. So in some ways, he's like an off lane that turns into a support, kind of, which is part of the reason. Which is part of the reason that pros recently have been playing him slightly more support like. Because if he gets behind, it doesn't matter. You can still have somebody else that's more farm heavy in the 3 position.
Yeah. And so
you don't really know where he's going to go.
Yeah. So here's where I would not have any idea what the hell I'm doing in terms of answering, because I know what his abilities are. You know, he has his cogs, he has his hook shot, he has his pew 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 pew.
What does he do late game that's annoying that you'd have to deal with as a hero?
Oh, just bombing in on you with his hook shot and then cogging you.
Okay, so what do those do that's difficult? How does that force you to change your playstyle?
How does that force me to change my playstyle?
For example, when you played Sven yesterday, were you against a Clockwork by any chance?
I think I was. Yeah, I think I was in one game. And he hook shots and blade mails. And just zaps me. I don't have a good answer. I literally would be guessing.
So usually the problem is that he puts his cogs down in the fight, and you have to worry about bouncing off of them repeatedly. So it makes your mobility a lot worse, or it can section off team fights, or it can drain your mana, or he can stun through BKB with his ulti. So if you're playing Bane, for example, maybe playing against a clock is not a good thing. If you're playing an Earthshaker against a clock, that doesn't sound fun at all. You saw that clip that we made a long time ago with like battery assault. You can't cast spells unless you Echo Slam.
Yeah.
So there's things like that you may want to be concerned about. Like, how does the hero that you're thinking about picking match up against clock, basically? Crystal Maiden versus clock sounds pretty awful right now. You could really easily get killed level 1. Stuff like that.
Okay, I think that I've been playing too much Bristleback and Nyx, because when I was playing supports, those thoughts would happen where I'd go, this guy will fucking ruin my day. Slarks will ruin my day. I gotta get sentries up. God, Clockwork will ruin my day. But I part of me feels like I need to be thinking more sophisticatedly than that. But I mean, is it really that basic that just like, yeah, no, he'll shit on a lot of very squishy supports, and if you have long spell animations, you'll just never get him off.
That's if he gets on top of you. So you can either think of it as, how do I make sure the clock doesn't get on top of me, or how fast can I get a Force Staff this game? Because then it doesn't matter if he hookshots me, because I can basically just kill his hero by forcing myself out. So you can use those thoughts to be like, okay, CM kind of sucks against clock sometimes, but if we have a good game and I get gold and I get a Force Staff really fast, then I'm never going to die to him, and then I don't really care as much. So there's lots of different ways that you can solve each problem, but hero matchup stuff is definitely the safest, and thinking, is the hero that I'm playing going to build a Force Staff? Like, did you see that clip of Arteezy that was on Reddit yesterday or today? He's playing a Shadow Fiend. He was playing Shadow Fiend. He almost died. Okay. He's playing Shadow Fiend. He almost died of the Clockwork. He barely got out because his ally Fissure knocked him out, kind of like what Tusk does with shards. And I thought it was interesting that he instantly rushed Hurricane Pike, basically, because it's kind of a bad item for the stats it gives. But it was worth it in that case because he was against a Clockwork. And now he knew that even if he gets hookshotted and cogged in, he can still Force Staff himself out while still having the benefits of Dragonlance. So still a hero that he wanted to play, but it adjusts his build and the way that he deals with it. So, move on?
Yes, here we go. All right. I know
2 heroes you played.
Okay. Hey, I'm ready. Check it. Listen. Look. All right, so Bounty Hunter, obviously his invisibility is a problem. So Spirit Breaker is ridiculously good against that, because you just know exactly where he is. God, I hate playing against Spirit Breaker when I'm a motherfucking Bounty Hunter. More basic stuff, I think that we would just want to choose possibly no not possibly no junglers. We would want to choose absolutely no junglers. Not just because Kevin Purge Gamers Godek might be watching, but also because he can pop in there and deal damage. And here's something that I don't know if is correct. Maybe we want to try to want to try to play slightly more sturdy early game characters because of the Bounty Hunter. I mean,
you wouldn't want to lane a Shadow Fiend against it, probably. Yeah. But if you did, what would you do?
Put a sentry down right in the damn middle of the forest, man.
Or give him a sentry. Or what if you picked a roaming hero that would allow you to just kill the bounty when bounty shows up?
Yeah,
like Earth Spirit, for example, was popular for that. You just hide in the trees when bounty reveals himself. You use Rolling Boulder onto him. You pop the smoke or the dust, and then you just right-click him with an Orb of Venom. So there's more ways again to deal with that. What about Bristle, though?
Probably want a Silver Edge Carrier. Someone who can break his passive.
So somebody who naturally builds Shadowblade in their build, ideally.
Yeah. Let me think other things that have been very effective against Bristleback. I'm trying not to get too specific. I'm trying to stay conceptual because part of me wants to be like, you Bane Nightmare him, because ever since you suggested that, oh my god, if you just turn off Bristleback at the start of the fight, it's so awesome. I don't know. That's kind of roughly what I got. I have not found that I die with Bristleback too often.
Okay. I'd maybe say consider picking supports that have decent HP or armor in the laning stage, and ideally with enough nukes that you can kill him repeatedly at level 1 before he gets like level 3, level 4, and starts becoming a bigger threat. That's probably what I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess Legion Chimeras, he can force him to face.
Yeah, Legion or Axe or something like that are really effective as well. Okay, we probably don't need to do all these because they're taking quite a while, even though I think it's really good. Are any of these you'd prefer to focus on before we move on to the next section?
Let's go Warp Speed. Dazzle Huskar. I played against this combo. This combo is unbelievably, ridiculously super potent. So who's good against Huskar? Axe is great against Huskar. People that are good at picking them off. There was another one that I had that I don't fucking remember. Okay, Dazzle. Dazzle has no disables. There's currently no disables right now in this lineup. So going for something super disable heavy. Yeah. That's what I got.
It could work. Or good escape like Quap or something would probably never die to these two.
Oh, right.
Because they can't lock her down. So
these two. So this is very weak in lane right now. Because Crystal Maiden sucks as a lane support. In particular, Day 9 on Crystal Maiden sucks as a lane support. So there's a non-zero probability this is Day 9, so we'll probably desperately need some sort of third support to help Drow early on, and therefore doing something very aggressive, some early good offlaners, like, hell, Batrider. Batrider, Ogre Magoo early might just dumpster this. Something like that. I would focus heavily on picking some mix of two in the offlane or a roamer who could spend some time in the offlane. Okay, we got Tiny up in this bitch with Io. I guess we'll just need a lot of sturdiness and escape because Io provides so much sustain. So we might also want to have huge burst to try to just pick off Io right away.
That's better. I like that idea better. You're gonna have to deal with Io's heavy sustain for the tiniest. That means harassing Tiny is kind of weak, so you might not want to pick somebody like Viper, like a lane winner. You might not want to focus on something like that. It might be better to pick somebody that's just effective in the lane.
Yeah.
Regardless of that. Maybe like Shadow Fiend. No, that's kind of dangerous too, because you get killed by Tiny. That one's kind of scary. That's more of like, you would probably usually what pros pick is teamfight ultimates or AoE disables. That way when the IO relocate comes in the mid game, that you just drop the static storm where they're relocating to, so you catch two for sure. Or they'll cast Ravage and just like help offset the fact that it amps up Tiny so much. So
or they'll just first ban IO like every pro draft I've ever watched.
Yeah, that also might happen. Yeah.
Okay, so Sniper. Oh shit, let's get Quap on that. Let's get PA on that. Let's get anyone who can get up in on that. Like, oh dude, Bristleback pounding him down with his little bristle stone shit, man. Fuck yeah, I love killing Sniper. It is awesome to kill Sniper, man. Slark, surprise, bitch. You got broken. It doesn't even matter that you don't have a scary passive, man. I'm just gonna cut you down. I love it. Coddle has no disables, actually, now that I think about it, except for Mana Leak. So don't pick Bristleback into Coddle, I have learned recently. It's a real pain in the ass. That's all I got. I don't actually know how to counter Keeper of the Light. I mean, I suppose you could just have someone who's good at jumping on him, similar to Sniper. Actually, maybe the PA, Huskar type things would be good in the mid and late game, but against Sniper early on, I guess you also really need a Gankaroni and the Pepperoni.
Yeah,
or
definitely
a very,
agree.
very good harasser.
Yeah, gap closing, ganking, both good against both of these heroes. They're bad at escaping once they get initiated on, and they're fairly squishy. So yeah, you definitely nailed that. Pretty good.
Pretty good, not bad. Hey,
learned some pretty good stuff in there. And then we have one more, just a more drafting thing. We got 3 lineups. So this is like a slightly more expanded. Try not to look at the lineups that we're going to secretly look at later. But talk to me. Can you look at these 5 heroes? This is something we haven't really done before because it's overwhelming. But we're going to take a shot at it here quick before we start.
No, I got this shit. I can do this shit. Right. I have the gift, Kevin. I'm the guy with all the gifts. Okay. I'm sorry. What's the question? I cut you off.
What do you see? What do you see from this lineup of 5? What's their strengths? What's their weaknesses? What would you do to counter them? What do you got?
Yeah. Top lineup, low on physical damage. That's the biggest thing right now. Heavy on magic. So we can go for our BKB, Lotus Orb, Pipe of Insight, all that sort of stuff against them, and it's pretty good at the shutdowns. It does not look like they have a clear safe laner. I guess this would be Ember Spirit. This fine Zeus would be in mid. This is an off laner. Veno and Earthshaker can do some mixture of support with Veno, possibly jungling, but that's illegal now. That will get you arrested. So, looking through this, they tend to have, I would say the biggest characteristic is the heavy magic damage, strong disables with these 2 guys.
I wouldn't characterize Tide as a strong disable just because Ravage is so low cooldown or low cooldown.
Yeah.
say Earthshaker has
that makes sense.
features. In fact, if I look at that lineup, I think it's actually kind of weak disable. They've got decent disable. Earthshaker definitely helps, but Searing Change is not a hard stun. Venomous Gale is not a hard stun. Yes, there's a Ravage, but Zeus doesn't give disable. It's basically just Earthshaker and Searing Chain. So I would say they're a little disable light, maybe. And BKB definitely counters this lineup extremely well.
Yeah.
Maybe having disable against them is really effective. I would say silences are really good, stuns are really good, BKBs are really good.
And it seems like it would be hard to get that many pickoffs with this lineup, given how nimble Ember is. So I might want to just go more... This is weird to say, but I guess more team fight focus and just buy the good magic resistance items because they're so heavily into magic resistance or so heavy in magic damage.
Yeah, if you buy like a cloak or a glimmer cape or a hood against or a pipe against lineups like these, it gives you a ton of value, definitely. I would say that this team is bad at pushing towers, kind of like Veno's good at it, but like late game, mid game, they don't really have a good tower hitter other than Veno wards.
Oh, fucking tower hitters! You brought that up earlier. Totally overlooked that. Right.
What about the other aspect? Do you remember the other one? Roshin. Are they good at rushing?
Fuck. They don't really have the best Roche. Yeah, they don't really have anyone that'll deal a lot of good physical beatdowns on them.
Like Veno with Solar Crest could work decent, and they have Tide Gush, which is some more minus armor. And I guess, I mean, they have so much magic damage, maybe they just use magic damage. But yeah, I'd say they're a little bit weak at rushing as well. But team fighting, they're great. Really good at team fighting.
Right.
Okay. Anything else before you want to move into the next one?
No, I have nothing else to say to you, Kevin. I'm done. Great. Okay.
Not many colors.
Yes,
definitely very colorful.
A very, very gray lineup. A little gray, a little red. So, looking at this, I feel like, what are the characteristics of this?
What are the lanes? Do you have any idea?
Tiny, let's see. Tiny mid, Clockwork. Wait a goddamn minute. Okay, so here's what I would presume. Omni Knight off lane, Clockwork support, Bristleback safe lane, Tiny mid lane, Tusk roaming.
Sounds pretty good. Yeah. It could be Bristle off lane, maybe. They could.
I was thinking maybe Omni Knight safe lane and Clockwork off lane.
You could, depending on what the enemy's off lane is expected to be. Maybe the Omni is laning against a Tide off lane. Then you put them in a 1v1, you do an aggro dual lane or an aggro try. Maybe that's going to benefit you.
Yeah.
Definitely an option.
Let's see. In terms of stuns, this team seems disable light. Very gank heavy, very durable. Very gank heavy, very durable. So I've identified the qualities, I think.
Yeah, this one's kind of hard for me to see, actually.
Sander just put a bunch of heroes together and was like,
he gave me notes. I just can't remember what he said. I would say that they have very good sustain, obviously, between like the Bristle and the Omni. That's pretty dangerous, but I would say that once the Omni dies, I feel like the team fight is fairly straightforward. So if I look at this lineup, the definitely killing Omni first is my big priority. That or Tiny, because Tiny is also a lot of their damage. Like Tusk and Clock provide pretty good damage sometimes a lot, but the Tiny and the Bristle are the big brunt of the damage output. So, and the Omni is a big part of the survivability, as is sometimes the Clock. So you can kind of make decisions based on what your strengths are as a lineup. Who's the most important hero to kill? Who do you use your nukes on? How do you initiate? Like, I would say a team fight lineup is actually very good against this one because, like, imagine the lineup above it going in. Tide Blink Ravages.
Oh my god.
And they Echo Slam, Chain Kill the Omni Knight. The fight's over instantly because the rest of the heroes aren't going to be able to kill their opponents in time, and they're not going to be able to sustain. And maybe Bristle and Tiny get 2 kills, but I feel like they all get wiped.
Fucking yes.
So dissecting team fights like that is really important because while you're about to go in, it's sometimes important to know, is it okay if I just jump in and jump on this Bristle, or do I actually really need to kill the Omni?
Yeah.
And making those mistakes will completely change the tempo of the game if you lose a fight you shouldn't have.
So in this particular fight, they have everyone's ranged. Oh god, but they are squishy. Oh my god, we are full of squishomatics right now. in this particular lineup, someone who can be a super durable front liner to just jam in there. Really high burst damage would be very nice against this, although Dazzle can be an issue. I would say the biggest target in the fight is probably Drow, just to pick her off and reduce the damage of everyone else, I guess.
I would do Sniper first, is the biggest damage output, for sure. Keep in mind that one of Drow's skills gives the same damage to every hero, so if you have a Sniper
that's exactly
who has his
why
own
I'm
skills,
thinking, like, to kill the Drow first is to kill the Precision Aura.
I kind of agree, but who else is going to profit as heavily from Precision Aura as the Sniper? And Sniper is going to be doing shrapnels and assassinates and be far away. What do you think who's the carry in this game, by the way? Or, like, what are the lanes for this?
Sniper mid, Drow safe lane with CM Dazzle support, and I guess Vengeful Spirit off lane.
This one technically doesn't make sense unless it's like an aggro or something, but I would assume they don't have an obvious off lane. There's obviously issues in the draft, but this kind of screams to me maybe even Venge off lane, I guess, maybe like Venge Dazzle. It could work, honestly. That could be a decent off lane against a weak dual lane. Like if you're against, like, I don't know, an Ember Spirit and a CM or something, and I'm like Venge Dazzle, we're gonna kill people because they both do physical damage. Venge can lower their armor, which means that Poison, Touch, and Shadow Wave do more damage. Like, Venge is actually really good as a early game fighter. So, there's things they could do that could be strong. But I think your analyzation was good. Like team fighters, divers like Spearbreaker, stuff like that. Kill the DPS heroes in the back lane. I would definitely gank the Drow a lot this game, for sure. But I would have to be careful if the Venge is behind her, or if the Dazzle is behind her as well, because that could make the ganks less likely to succeed. And don't let them get ahead and push all your towers. Okay, so we kind of touched on some drafting stuff. I didn't really want to go into like captain's mode too much, because realistically it's not something you need as a player. It will help you understand and enjoy the pro scene a little bit more, but you can probably get better info on that from watching the casters anyways. So
yeah, because I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, if we looked at captain's mode drafts where everyone's playing super hard and trying to build deep, rich, elaborate strategies, that might tickle my observer fun strategy. It might tickle my fandom a little bit. But if I'm in a pub game, your claim is that people are making such dramatic mistakes in their hero picking that you need to just know the blunt basic shit so you can exploit that and just kill.
Yeah, like looking at the second draft where we weren't sure who the offlaner was. Could have been any of them. Like, I could be like, I think this is the best lane setup. That's what it's going to be. But you get to your lane and it's like 2 heroes that you didn't expect to be there, and you're like,
yeah,
well,
dude,
they're bad. Let's see if we can beat it. Like, that happens every game.
Every game, every time.
Like, and you can make that stuff work. It's just it's harder.
Oh, man.
But at least you should be able to make some informed decisions about what you expect to see. And then if those 2 new heroes show up, that you can think like, okay, how does this change things? Yeah. Which of these 2 heroes is more vulnerable? How farmed do I expect to be? Do I need to change up my early game item build to get a fast Vanguard or a fast Ring of Health, because now I'm going to run out of regen really fast? All of those decisions should be adjusted. So when you play the games today, it really doesn't matter what you pick too much. It's probably better if you play like safe lane or off lane or something, because then you're going to encounter more weird situations if you really want to force that.
I'm going non-mid today.
But basically just see what happens and assess what you're against and try to adjust against it if you need to. If you play carry and you have a really tough lane, do your best.
I'm ready, Kevin. I'm ready to go, dude. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Ready.
Well, this is the time where I'm going to take a brief break in order to use the restroom, because I am an organism and I have needs. But when I return, I will be playing about 3 games. Probably a mixture of off lane and safe lane. No mids today. I'm just not in the mood to mid. And then we're going to transfer the stream over to Kevin's channel. If you're watching here on Day 9 TV, don't worry. I'm just going to host Kevin's channel. And Kevin is going to do 2 things. He's going to review my games, give feedback of them using video clips, and then he is going to do a live coaching session where there is currently a 1 out of 16 chance that he also plays in the game with us. Very excited about that. Also, big thanks to our coach, Gamer Sensei, who, if you've been seeing my tweets about them, they run a coaching site where it matches coaches who are really high MMR, like 6, 7K in Dota, with folks like you who want to learn how to play Dota. And as you see, this is how I'm learning Dota. I'm not necessarily going to a guide. I'm going to a man who is nothing but a veritable infinite stream of guidance flowing from his mouth. So we're big believers in coaching here. There's a link being pasted in the chat, pages.gamersensei.com/learn Dota. You can go down there into the link below the stream to check it out. So I am going to go, Kevin.
Okay, have a good time.
Yes, guys.
Make good decisions.
Oof. All right, hold on, we're going to get the, for duration, for a 3 minute, okay. Boom, it's going to be a 3 minute break, Kevin.
Okay.
Bam. Coming back in 3.